I am not mad. People say I am, but I insist, I'm not. Sure, I am dreadfully nervous, yes, very nervous, but mad? No, not mad at all. If anything, my illness has only sharpened my senses, especially my hearing. Oh, my hearing is so acute. I can hear all things in heaven. I can hear all things on earth. And believe it or not, I can even hear many things in hell. Now, this story, it concerns an old man. Oddly enough, I loved this old man. He had never wronged me. Never. Not once had he given me any insult. I had no desire for the old man's gold. I didn't wish for his wealth. There was no rational motive for what I planned. Only this creeping, chilling dread that began to grow inside me. The problem, you see, was one of the old man's eyes. It resembled that of a vulture, a pale blue eye, with a hideous film over it. A dreadful veil. Whenever it fell upon me, my blood ran cold. Ice seemed to fill my veins. A deep, deep chill. I found it unbearable to look at. This eye and this eye alone stirred a profound hatred in me. A hatred that festered deep within my soul. So, very gradually I made up my mind. I decided I must take the life of the old man. That way, I could rid myself of the eye forever. That was my object, not passion, not greed. I wasn't driven by any understandable anger. It was the eye I despised, not the man himself. During the day I was kinder than ever to the old man. I spoke gently with a false, reassuring smile. Every night I began my careful work. For 7 long nights I practiced my ritual. At midnight precisely, I would turn the latch of the old man's door. I would open it, oh so gently. Then, when I had made an opening just big enough for my head, I would put in a dark lantern all closed. No light shone out. Then I would thrust in my head. Oh, you would have laughed to see how cunningly I thrust it in. I moved it slowly, very, very slowly. I did not wish to disturb the old man's sleep. It took me an hour to place my whole head within the opening so far that I could see him as he lay upon his bed. Ha! Would a madman have been so wise as this? And then when my head was well in the room, I would undo the lantern cautiously, oh so cautiously. On the 8th night I was more patient, more careful. I opened the door. The hinges did not creak. The old man must have sensed something. He moved suddenly. I did not draw back. I kept still. I said nothing. For a whole hour I did not move a muscle. In the meantime I did not hear him lie down. The old man sat up in bed, listening, just as I had done, night after night, hearkening to the death watches in the wall. Then, a slight accident. My thumb slipped upon the tin fastening. The old man sprang up in bed crying out, "Who's there?" I kept quite still. I said nothing. I scarcely breathed. I held the lantern motionless. I waited. A long time. The old man did not lie down. At length I decided to open a very, very little crevice in the lantern. So I opened it. A single dim ray like the thread of the spider. It shot out from the crevice and fell full upon the vulture eye. It was open, wide open. I grew furious as I gazed upon it. I saw it with perfect distinctness, all a dull blue, with a hideous veil over it that chilled the very marrow in my bones. But I could see nothing else of the old man's face or person. For I had directed the ray as if by instinct, precisely upon the damned spot, and now, I heard a low dull quick sound, much such a sound as a watch makes when enveloped in cotton. It was the beating of the old man's heart. It increased my fury. With a loud yell, I threw open the lantern. I leapt into the room. The old man shrieked once only. In an instant I dragged him to the floor. I pulled the heavy bed over him. I smiled gaily to find the deed so far done. But for many minutes the heart beat on with a muffled sound. This however did not vex me. It would not be heard through the wall. At length it ceased. The old man was dead, stone dead. His eye would trouble me no more. I removed the bed and examined the corpse. Yes, he was stone dead. I then set about concealing the body. The wise precautions I took. First of all I dismembered the corpse. I cut off the head, and the arms, and the legs. I was careful. I then took up 3 planks from the flooring of the chamber. I deposited all between the scantlings, so cleverly, so cunningly. There was nothing to wash out, no stain of any kind, no blood spot whatever. I had been too wary for that. A tub had caught all, ha ha! When I had made an end of these labors it was 4 o'clock. As the bell sounded the hour there came a knocking at the street door. I went down to open it with a light heart. For what had I now to fear? There entered 3 men who introduced themselves with perfect suavity as officers of the police. A shriek had been heard by a neighbor during the night. Suspicion of foul play had been aroused, information had been lodged at the police office, and they, the officers, had been deputed to search the premises. I smiled, for what had I to fear? I bade the gentleman welcome. The shriek, I said, was my own in a dream. The old man, I mentioned, was absent in the country. I took my visitors all over the house. I bade them search well. I led them at length to my chamber. I showed them my treasures, secure, as if they had never been disturbed. In the enthusiasm of my confidence, I brought chairs into the room. I desired them here to rest from their fatigues, while I myself, in the wild audacity of my perfect triumph, placed my own seat upon the very spot beneath which reposed the corpse of the victim. The officers were satisfied, my manner had convinced them, I was singularly at ease. They sat, and while I answered cheerily, they chatted familiar things. But, ere long, I felt myself getting pale. I wished them gone, my head ached. I fancied a ringing in my ears, but still they sat, and still chatted. The ringing became more distinct, it continued, and became more distinct. I talked more freely to get rid of the feeling, but it continued, and gained definitiveness, until at length I found that the noise was not within my ears. No doubt I grew very pale, but I talked more fluently and with a heightened voice, yet the sound increased, and what could I do? It was a low, dull, quick sound, much like a watch enveloped in cotton. I gasped for breath, and yet the officers heard it not. I talked more quickly, more vehemently, but the noise steadily increased. I arose and argued about trifles in a high key and with violent gesticulations, but the noise steadily increased. Why would they not be gone? I paced the floor to and fro with heavy strides, as if excited to fury by the observation of the men. Oh God, what could I do? I foamed, I raved, I swore. I swung the chair upon which I had been sitting and grated it upon the boards. But the noise arose over all, and continually increased. It grew louder, 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 and still the men chatted pleasantly and smiled. Was it possible they heard not? Almighty God, no, they heard, they suspected, they knew, they were making a mockery of my horror. This I thought and this I think, but anything was better than this agony. Anything was more tolerable than this derision. I could bear those hypocritical smiles no longer. I felt that I must scream or die. And now, again, hark, louder, 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 villains, I shrieked. Dissemble no more, I admit the deed, tear up the planks, here, it is the beating of his hideous heart.